Well, this will be the last beautiful sunrise, at least at sea, on this trip. And it's absolutely gorgeous. We still have our symmetrical spinnaker up, and we're going about 7.5 to 8 knots in 16 knots of wind behind us. And fingers crossed, and knock on wood, this may be our last full day at sea. It's important to sort of relish the sunrise. I'm glad I'm recording it. Welcome to our All Together Passage series, a daily vlog taking you with us on our maiden voyage from France to Miami. We're on leg 2 to the Caribbean. Let's do this. So we thought we would today just have a few reflections overall, take a step back, see where we are, and share some of our reflections on not only this leg, but also just our journey overall and whether we made the right decision.
Yeah, because we're less than 24 hours away from landfall, so it's a good time to reflect.
Yeah. For many of you who have been following our podcast for a while, Covert Castaway, we sort of decided to make the transition to liveaboard cruising from conventional life and spent 5 years sort of planning the transition that we started to make in 2020 with our first boat, production catamaran. And the idea was to merge the joy of sailing, where kind of Stefan came from, with the joy of traveling, and which we both enjoy. Mm-hmm. And we kind of started our journey and got 2 seasons in with the Med and decided we were doing a lot of joy of travel stuff, but not as much joy of sailing stuff. So we sort of made a high-risk decision to change boats, and we did that very quickly. We made the decision and we sold our boat within just a couple months. And then we were committed to a performance catamaran to Outremer, and we made, a pretty thoughtful decision about which boat, which you can also see in other videos that we've done previously. But then we were in it. Mm-hmm. And while we were waiting for the boat, we were doing all the fun stuff like commissioning and making decisions about, sail plan and all of the things we wanted to go on the boat, and also doing the Outremer weeks and a lot of the training. So,
yeah. And it was a little difficult. It was taking a step back in our journey, which we had really fully prepped our boat for circumnavigation.
Our first boat, yeah.
And decided to take a step back, and was that the right thing to do?
Right. Because it could have gone either way. Like, was the change and the time it took going to be worth it versus just continuing on and continuing our journey? So before we got the boat and we started doing the Outremer training weeks, I will say I had, pardon my French, but an oh shit moment is the best way to describe it. Because I realized, at least for me, I had to pretty seriously level up. And on our previous boat, I could be kind of more of a helper, and I could follow directions, but I didn't necessarily need to be a sailor. I could motor the boat, I could do some pretty basic docking, I could navigate, I could do that kind of thing, but I wouldn't have considered myself a sailor at that point. What do you think?
I think you not giving yourself enough credit. But
I took training, I got bareboat certified, we did sailing and that kind of thing, but I don't know. Sail trim to me was elusive, sail choices were elusive, and
I think you had genuine interest in learning.
Yeah, I had an interest. But the point is that my idea of cruising was more about the travel aspects and managing the operations of travel, not necessarily becoming a seasoned sailor. And so while I had that moment, I think what I also loved was the challenge to push myself to see if it was something I could really level up on. And
especially with the environment provided by outremer and learning, because that has this structure.
Yeah, for sure. Like that was definitely the case. I felt like it was approachable. Like it was an approachable challenge because there was a path to learn. There was a path to get there, and that's when I met the outremer instructors, and that's when I met Nikki and really started to understand what sailing was all about, which really, if you break it all down, it's sort of like anybody can do it. It's just like anything else, you have to practice.
I think you have to be humble, you have to be willing to learn.
Yeah.
And you have to put the time.
Yeah.
And then in different conditions, and then it will come. But there is no fast. It seems simple on the outside.
There's no way around it. You have to put the hours in. It's just like anything else. It's just like training for any kind of sport. So we got the boat, and we were really excited, and the boat was lovely and beautiful, and everything on paper it was supposed to be.
And more.
And more. And we did a very brief shakedown because after handover we were also, the boat was kind of being completed. We were working out some kinks with our electronics. We did, passage to and from Corsica. We were able to use the sails mostly. We hadn't gotten the S4 yet. And then it's just time, we decided, okay, we're going to cross.
Yeah, that was the goal all along, When we said we're going to take a step back to continue our journey on the right platform, because there's a lot of ocean, and we want to be able to travel this safely and have fun doing it at the same time.
So we kind of literally and figuratively jumped into the deep end, meaning it was the end of the season in the Med. The weather was rapidly changing, and it was time to get out of the Med, and so we decided to do the voyage across the Atlantic and go over to the Caribbean and the Bahamas. And in that time frame, we also decided it would be prudent to get skipper instructors on board to continue our learning on our own boat. So the outremer weeks are great. I was able to get on 5X, 55, 45, 51, and the 52. Outremers. But it wasn't our boat, right? And it wasn't our sail plan, it wasn't our lines, it wasn't our instruments. And so we did that. So in leg one, we crossed with Jean-Marc, which was very challenging because of the upwind conditions, and more than that was the sea state. And we got to Gibraltar, and then it was the orcas. So it wasn't really a normal passage. It was sort of it was challenging in different ways, right? Not necessarily the sail part, more just the voyage part. And that's maybe a lesson in it, that there is no normal passage. This one is not a normal passage either, so I think that just you have to be ready for Mother Nature. And we learned a lot. I mean, it's good to get those experiences because I think it makes us well-rounded. Kind of that upwind situation, having to motor because of the sea state, and also needing to stay close enough to the shore. With all the traffic, making the choice to do
motor,
that.
And other people would have made different decisions, and so different things that come into play in the decisions you make, and you look back and be like, could have made other decisions, but you have to take this as a learning opportunity. It totally was. So we got to
we got to the Canaries safely. We had a couple repairs that needed to be made, which are the normal part of the regular shakedown process for any new boat. And then we started leg 2. So for the last 16 days, we've been at sea. And this hasn't been let's cross the Atlantic in the trade winds, throw up the spinnaker, and let's be done with it and just enjoy the music and our books all day. It's been, there's been an abundance of opportunities to learn things, for sure. You want to kind of go over the phases?
Yeah, different phases in the trip. Typically, the trade winds mean you're sailing on a starboard tack in 18-20 knots of wind, and you put basically one sail up, and you're in the Caribbean. In our case, the weather. At this time of the year, typically the trade winds are well established, but this season and every year it seems recently, it's been a bit different. The high pressure was unusually high and east, and there was another high pressure in the Atlantic, and that created a little hole in between that started to create some low pressures. So we had to deal with sea state coming from the southeast. We had to deal with not going too far south because there was light wind, not going too far west because then we will find ourselves in upwind condition in 25 knots. So we had to kind of manage this fine line of keeping enough wind to keep moving, and grateful for this boat to keep moving in every condition.
And that's what's interesting is, if you talk to a lot of people that do the crossing, they go, oh, you don't need that many sails because you just put up this spinnaker and you kind of cruise across at the rum line. I mean, it's not that hard. And I don't know, like our experience on this passage was that having a lot of sails was really helpful.
Yeah, more than a lot is the right sails, the right plan, the right sail plan.
Yeah.
So for whatever conditions, we could put the right sail and keep moving, get those
in
miles
the right direction,
and moving into the positions you want to be for the next 24 hours and so forth. So to have those options at hand and feel it's kind of like you have your gears in your car and you can shift, the different gears. They're there. And you have the sails and you're like, hey, this is the right sail, this is the right sail. And you have to be active if you want to stay on it.
Right.
But to have those tools on board and to be able to keep moving and stay away from, less worse conditions is definitely was a very good option to have.
So given all that, what we just shared about the journey, what would you say as reflections of making the right decision, or even reflections on our progress? What would you say? Yeah,
the boat itself, what we envision, I think the boat checks all the boxes.
Oh, I think more than that.
Yeah. And
it's fun.
And I think a good reminder, first you experience the joy of sailing, it's fun. You feel more in control of doing the things you want to do based on weather, sea states, based on different things. And then a gentle reminder that we move for us on the right side is seeing those production boats with, many jerry cans in Las Palmas on their boat, just preparing for that crossing where they're going to have to motor for days and days. And the forecast was definitely showing that maybe we would have had to sit for 24 hours and not move.
Wait for wind.
Every day every hour we were able to move.
We were able to move the whole time. We didn't, and we weren't even tempted to turn the engines on for.
So people sometimes you're in a fast boat. It's not just the fast boat going fast when it's windy and big waves. It's to be able to keep moving in all some kind of conditions. So I think that's having made the decision back 2 years ago on paper, and taking this jump with Outremer based on their history and DNA, and I think that's super happy about that.
And just one comment on the boat is I feel safe on this boat. the boat feels confident. It's stiff. It just feels like it was built for this, and it's an emotion. It's a feeling. It's not a spec, and that's what I was hoping for. You know, when we were in the Med, I kind of felt it, but when you're in the middle of the ocean and there's no land anywhere, and you're on your own to figure out your own problems. We were talking about this earlier. You know, your risk just goes up, and if your risk goes up, you want to make sure, you know, you have a boat that you trust, because there's going to be those times where you're going to have to deal with a situation and you're just going to have to completely trust the boat that it can take care of you and kind of hand it over, you know, in that sense. So that's been really good.
Yeah, the other reflection, I mean, is what you were talking about earlier, that's taking that step back allowed us to, you know, to do a better preparation ultimately for a trip. You know, at the time when we got our first boat, we obviously took sailing lessons and, you know, trying to do some classes about diesel and mechanics and stuff, but taking advantage through the outremer weeks of all these
the
classes.
Medical preparation and all of the necessary stuff.
Yeah, that knowledge becomes, it's a useful way to spend time waiting for your boat, or in our case to switch boats.
Yeah, and we're not trying to make this an outremer ad or anything. It's more just that's been our experience. Like, we just felt more prepared, and a lot of it had to do with what they offered.
Yeah, I mean, and when we made the decision to switch boat, it was not just the boat. It was like, what can we do in the 18 months or 2 years
to accelerate our learning?
To you know, not just to wait.
Yeah.
And so there were other things that came in that made sense to us to reset.
So what about you? Do you feel like you learned a lot?
Yeah, learn a lot about our own boat, our sails, how to manage. I mean, I've done passages before, but that was in racing. Here's just having crew on board and. Like Ségolène, who's new, and I don't know, just being aware that there are different phases. It's a long passage, and
I reflect on you. I feel like your leadership skills have evolved. They were good before, but I think they've evolved to be more just aware of, you know, the various situations and the skill set of people and that kind of thing. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, good things. You can be focused on certain things, and then to keep the big picture in mind is important.
Yeah.
And so, how about you? You feel you've grown?
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always the unknown that's scary. You know, not knowing how to get a sail down in an emergency, not knowing, you know, could I do this myself if I had to. You know, those things are what is scary. Not knowing, like, if the A2 collapses, what's the worst thing that can happen. And I think what's been really good on this trip is there's a lot less unknowns. You know, I feel like I know what to do in the maneuvers a bit. I think the downwind reefing, we have to kind of chat through a couple more times to get it completely nailed and committed to memory. But yeah, I mean, what do you think? What are your observations?
Oh yeah, no, it's been fun to see you kind of like evolve during the trip, I feel, and just moving around the boat, going forward in sea state. That was not easy. Right now, it's all waves behind us, so it's different. But most of the passage was not, and you know, to see you at night and going up front and by yourself and being clipped in and dousing the spinnaker or rigging after a jibe and re-rigging stuff and checking everything and so it's fun at times. Even if I was there, I could have helped. Nikki says, you know, we got it, and so I just sat there and just looked and reflect. So it's fun to see the growth and Yeah,
I feel a lot more confident and a lot less anxious. I think when we first started out in Corsica, my anxiety was really high. I'm not typically, I don't consider myself to be a stressed out person at all, but I think it's just the unknown, you know? And it was never anything outward, directed outward, or anything maybe you could even see on my face. But inside, your chest is tight, your neck's a little tight, and you're just not feeling comfortable at all. And that is completely different now. I mean, I feel, you have to be humble, you have to be humble with the elements, but I just feel more relaxed. And you understand the gravity of the situation and what could happen if things go bad, but you don't let it dominate you. Where I felt really dominated before by my fears, honestly.
And to make sure to really engrave all these moments, because it's easy to get comfortable again, at anchor, doing some short, easy passages, but then there will be some kind of overnight, 2 overnights, and then make sure you have those memories and you keep practicing them.
Right.
So when you're always ready to start again and be like, okay, I'm in the groove, I know this, I know the feeling, this is the right sail, this is the right
know what to do.
Behavior of the boat, the right sounds.
So I think it's going to make decision making a lot easier too. We had a long conversation about that yesterday. And I think now that I know more about what's going on, what observations to look for, what the sails can or can't take, what the boat can or can't take, which it can't, it can take a lot. I think it makes me...
With the crew.
It's better to, I think it's going to make our conversations about those decisions better.
It's more fun because it's more collaborative.
Right.
You have the sounding board and every person can add this little piece, and I think naturally you come to what makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're able to have this dialogue and take the time, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
To have this conversation, not rush to anything, and get the feel, get the vibe, and be like, there is no right or wrong. You could make a wrong decision, sure, but within the range of what's acceptable, there is a lot of uncertainty, so you're trying to make the best decisions.
Yeah.
And if you make, if it was not the right sail choice, or you didn't douse, maybe you should have not.
You put it back up.
Yeah, you put it back up.
Yeah.
So you learn.
Yeah. So overall, was the decision to change platforms 2 years later worth it?
I think it's more than just changing platform. It's changing the platform. It's taking the time to raise our skills. It's making the decisions to get some people that are kind of skipper instructors that we can learn from. I think to me that's like
up-leveling.
All these decisions make it that it was definitely worth it, because now we have a stronger duo.
Yeah. I feel like we're more of a team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the gap is shorter and between us, and that's great, because we need to have it's just more fun if you can share this trip by doing it all together. And it doesn't mean somebody is not going to do some jobs more than others because there's maybe more height or physicality and stuff like this, but to know that everybody can do each job.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what it takes for the other person to do the other job because they've done it. So you're just more in tune with...
And it's gotta relieve stress on your end too.
Yeah, I mean, it's tiring, especially for a long passage, but even a short one, because there's so many things you need to get right. You want to make like a mistake, and now if you have two people bouncing ideas or helping each other, suddenly like you get the thing done. It's like mastery. Like you know what needs to be done, when, and quickly. And so you're like, you're taking time to make a decision. You're taking time to do all these cell changes, but all this consumes energy. But if you know what needs to be done, if you know how to do it, and if you know how to do it well, and it might not be 100%, but it's like this 90%, and then you move on. You can focus on other things that are important to keep your energy up, to make sure that everything goes well on board. So that's kind of like the next level. Yeah. But you need to go through those stages.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm really happy we did it, and the experience has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been hard work, I feel. I feel we're about to start to take a little pause from all this preparation, testing, thinking, decision making, to drop the hook and kind of and change a little bit of a mode and give ourselves a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
You've been doing these daily vlogs. That's pretty amazing. I mean, when we had this idea way back, I was like, it was definitely a big stretch.
Well, they started out, they were supposed to be 5-minute vlogs. They've turned into not 5-minute vlogs. But anyway, It's been really good, and I'm glad we were able to capture it. And share it,
and keep those memories, because it's hard to remember everything that happened 10 days ago.
They all blur together all the days. So you haven't even seen the videos.
No, only you have seen them.
Only I've seen them.
Yeah.
So what are your reflections on our progress so far, would you say?
I feel proud of you both. It's such a, like, when you join and you sit down on like the first day and you say, okay, so what's success for you guys? Like, what can I do to help you? And people say things like, we want to change the dynamic in which we sail, or we want to grow in confidence. These are big aims. This is not, and there isn't this like easy recipe to produce that. So it's a bit like, okay, we'll do our best and hopefully it works out, sort of thing. So it's so nice to see you just speaking just then about, I don't know, you reeling off Martin breakers and letterbox drops, and Stefan talking about, pulling back, and, sometimes, and pushing the boat other times. Like, these are kind of much more advanced, both skills and ways of thinking about sailing. And that's completely new, I think, and I can't wait to see like how you take that and how you customize that for yourself.
Yeah, and thank you so much for everything. You've been amazing.
You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of just reflections on our end. And again, thank you for joining us, and we'll give a full finale recap after we're safely at anchor and squared away. Fair winds for now.
Bon vent.
This is so funny. On cue, the dolphins come. I had said this morning to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if just as the dolphins escorted us out of Las Palmas, if we would get a welcome committee to welcome us to Martinique, to the Caribbean. And here they are. It looks like there's about a dozen of them from the starboard side. They're jumping in the waves. They're like doing little flips. So cool. Oh, here comes one. Buddy.